Hey, everybody. It's Kathryn Perry, the Big Vision Coach. And thank you so much for joining me on this quickie presentation. I have an idea or inspiration that I often want to share with you. And it all has to do with the one command, which I teach the Commanding Wealth seminars. And I've worked with people one-on-one for, gosh, a long time. I was a small child, but I have to say have probably been doing this deep work with people for about the last 30 years. And I want to explain to you that about this period that we're coming into that starts today, the Mercury Retrograde, that's going to be going on for about 3 weeks. Now, number one, I just want to explain that I am not an astrologer at all, but I come from the perspective of someone who's been, I'm a hobbyist and I have a deep interest in astrology, but I also look at astrology metaphorically, how it impacts our environment and some of the lessons, like, because it's really a beautiful representation of what's happening in our unconscious systems and the greater systems that we're a part of. And so I don't know if I necessarily believe in, hey, I'm an Aquarius, so I can't date a Scorpio, which turns out, we would actually do pretty well. It's not from that, or even saying, hey, this is your personality because of your sign. I think that for the most part, we tend to be who we are, and there's some common influences, but I always think it's a beautiful way to frame a conversation, and that's what I want to go from here today. Now, number one, if you don't know what a Mercury retrograde is, for a period of time, astrologically speaking, but also in astronomy, there's a period where from Earth, the planet Mercury appears to be going backwards in the sky. Now, this is important because in astrology and we could go back to archetypes of the Roman god and even the Greek gods, Mercury is pure mental energy. Okay. And seems kind of like unemotional. There's detachment there, but he's also called a trickster, playful. Like, does our mind play tricks on us? Absolutely. But Mercury had a job of being a communicator. He delivered messages from the gods to the earth. And then he also was responsible for carrying souls to Hades. So Mercury rules communication, our mindset, the games we play, our mental constructions, that type of thing, communication, tools for communication, which is why you'll hear people say things like, oh no, make sure your computer's backed up, or my email went down, and the first thing someone says is, oh, it's a Mercury retrograde. But it's also a time during this retrograde that if there's a system that was strained and there's something that was not getting taken care of, like, do we defer maintenance? Yes. So any of that deferred maintenance during a retrograde is going to kind of show up. Now, this is not just in computers and cars and other modes of communication. The other thing that Mercury retrogrades and Mercury rules and Mercury retrograde affects is contracts and agreements. And one of the warnings that astrologers will give you is during the time of a retrograde, do not sign a new contract. But it could be a time of completing a contract, or what will likely happen is if you had a contract pending and it's time to sign it, there could be a delay, or suddenly they want to change the terms. Okay. So if you sign a contract, start a contract and sign a contract, now I'm just giving you retrograde lore. If you start a contract and sign a contract during this retrograde, it's probably going to fall apart. Something will happen that will keep the contract from being activated, or you can go forward, right? And conversely, this is a good time to review agreements. So if you go, we've set up some plans, there's some things that we want to do together, and we have this started, and we're planning to do this at the end of February. Well, let's take a look at our agreements and let's get clear on some things. And this is a great time to review contracts, agreements, any programs that you're putting together if you're in business, any products that you're wanting to release. But it's also a great time to take a look at those agreements that you have. Like if you're employed, hey, am all the work that I'm doing, is this work that I've agreed to do, or do I need to go back to my boss and say, I've gladly taken on more work to help out, but now it's been added to it and it's become like a tacit agreement, which it's unspoken, but because you're taking the action, it becomes a thing, and then you try to take it away and they go, but you never had any problem before. This is a time to say, this isn't working for me. And if you want me to continue in this capacity, we've got to talk about what the right role is and the right compensation. And let's review some of our agreements, right? And expectations. Let's manage some of our expectations. And so it's really a very powerful time for that. So just if nothing else, very often people get a lot of tension or anxiety, or they go, they just chalk everything at any bad luck or anything that's not working for them to a Mercury retrograde. And that's not necessarily so. Okay, so I want to talk to you today about what are some of the blessings. And I had lined up 3 blessings, but I think it may be helpful to start with why I would possibly want to talk to you about a retrograde and what my personal belief around it is. And my beliefs are built on experience. Like I might get an idea, I might accept it, I'll examine it, then I'll go, yeah, that's interesting, that's cool. But it really wasn't until probably around, I'd have to say this was around 1999, 2000. And at the time I was an apartment manager, and I was dating a maintenance man who managed another building. And we're at home on a Friday night enjoying our time, and my beeper goes off and his beeper goes off right around 11 o'clock. And we work for different companies, so it wasn't the same emergency, but we both had the same kind of emergency. A pipe had burst in a building, and a tenant was desperately trying to get a hold of me because a spigot blew and was flooding their whole bathroom and going out into the hallway and dripping down into the apartment below. And they didn't bother to try to call me or get a hold of me until they had tried to fix it themselves. But they didn't discover it until they had been gone from the apartment for a couple of hours. So you can imagine water blowing at full force for 2 hours and the amount of damage. But when I got back home, and then the next day I'm thinking about it, I get this little alert. It goes, yeah, the Mercury retrograde started, and it was in Pisces. And I went, oh, Pisces retrograde, water, of course. Okay, well, that's interesting. What a weird coincidence. And then a few months later, hanging out on a Saturday evening, everything's good. And both of our pagers go off again. Yeah, this is how old it is, pagers, right? But we both get these alerts, and we both rush to our properties, and guess what? It's water again. And the first time it was when it had gone into Pisces. So the second time is when the Mercury retrograde had started in Cancer. And it was actually, it turned out that it was the same issue on both buildings, and it was even from the same repair. I'm going, what the heck? This got fixed. We brought in the plumbers. We spent the money, but it was a deeper issue that hadn't been uncovered yet, right? And so fortunately, we're not having to deal with as much damage because we got there a lot sooner. But that was kind of getting my attention. And then the third time, right when it hit at Scorpio, which is another water sign, darn if we didn't have another water issue. And each one tended to have its kind of own issue where it did the damage. And what was interesting too, what was happening with the people that were involved. And it all kind of tied together, right? So it's really easy when you look at something in a situation and you try to bend it and you give it meaning, and you go, well, yeah, that's interesting, and that was happening, and you assign the meaning. But I was just paying attention to it. And then I had a good friend that did business astrology, and we talked about it. And I use feng shui in my office, and I saw amazing results with that. I use all the tools, and we just got to think about it. And I said, well, when's the next retrograde, and what signs are they going to be in? And she said, well, it's going to be in Aquarius. And so she said, watch out for winds, watch out for electrical issues. She said, like big electrical issues, maybe. And she said, with the influences, we're seeing big electrical issues with winds. I go, oh, okay. And then she said, but also in the retrograde, this is a time of things kind of coming back together and people realigning back to their values and what's important. I thought that is really cool. So as an apartment manager, every year I sit down and I do my budget. And so I thought, well, what is the weather like? And I looked back on some old patterns and go, yeah, usually in March is a time of big winds. So I'm going to make sure, I mean, it's kind of like famous. If it's in Seattle, and you'll see the news guy out there at at some pier where the water's splashing dramatically because these famous winds are coming through. And so I said, okay, every March we have these winds. I'm going to go ahead and put it into my budget for some exterior repairs on winds. And then the next period was going to be in Gemini. I said, well, that's everything around communication. So I'm going to make sure that my computers are all upgraded ahead of time, and we do virus checks and that type of thing. But then I went ahead and looked at my alarm system in the building, and I thought, it's probably just about time to look at those alarms. And I made sure I had money in my budget for any computer, but also I put in a little extra money in my alarm system. And finally, the last one was Libra, which is about kind of, balance. And it's just this kind of lovely time of beauty. And there had been, I think there was an earthquake, or there's some kind of local disaster that had caused some displacement, and there was some fundraising going on. And so I made sure that all of my fundraising and community resource money, like I got to have a little party money and things like that, I focused most of it for that month of October. And every time my boss said, wow, whew, we're so lucky that you happen to have money in your budget this time. And I said, yeah, lucky. But so that's my little personal story of when I realized that it was true. So the title of this is, hey, there's 3 gifts of the retrograde. Now, before, I even kind of tuned in like, oh yeah, it's time for a retrograde, I had noticed a pattern with my clients and happening in the group. And if you're not a member of the TOC Money Mindset Mastery group, I definitely want to encourage you to be a part, to check that out and to be a part of that, because every Tuesday at noon, we get together, and it's a free group, and we focus on what it is that you want to attract, create, or manifest. And there's been some special trainings that have been happening in that group. And one of the things that we talked about this last time was how to create an environment for success and what kind of things you should have on your desk. Like right now, I've got my money jar, and I have a bottle of water, and I just had my last little piece of candy. So, but I like to have a little nibble from time to time, but I usually have a little bit of something, a little food or something that represents it. But we always have these like fun things that we like to share about that daily practical application and how to connect into your own greater intelligence. And it's a community that's about enthusiastic support. But I have to say, one of the things that have really shown up in this and that we held the space for is healing. And very often when we're in distress, when we're in pain, we're hurting, we wonder what we should do, what action we should take. And a lot of times the most powerful thing you can do is to allow yourself to be present to it. Because if you aren't present, if you aren't really fully expressing that emotion, what happens is we repress it, we try to ignore it, or we try to do stuff. But what we're actually trying to do is we're trying to run away from it. Okay, we're trying to ignore it. And what happens is that unexpressed emotion builds up. So in the One Command Circle, we are present to each other in a beautiful, powerful way. And we just are, we say, let's send our heart light to each other. And we do nothing. We're holding no other thought except to be present to you in whatever state of being you are. An incredible thing happens, that there's this release and then the energy flows. And I don't know how to explain it other than there's like this energetic, almost a bounce back that happens, that as we just hold this space, that energy gets released and then it gets transformed and we get to kind of experience that love. I call it the bounce back, but we get that feeling that we're holding that space, that energy gets released, it gets processed, and then all the good lessons, all the learning, all the blessings of it arrive. Well, this is one of the benefits of being in a Mercury retrograde, is our lives are so busy. We're busy dealing with what's coming up. We're thinking about the next thing. We're trying to solve problems. We're trying to help people. We're just trying to get through the flipping day, right? And very often it's hard for us to really take time to allow ourselves to have our feelings. Number one, have we actually been taught how to honor our feelings and let our feelings just be, right? We're told, man up, work through it, power through, right? We try to get people into, hey, just forgive, accept, do the thing. But the opposite is true, that we have to honor and be present to. One, so that we can really understand what we're feeling. Now, we have deep feelings in our body, and they are different than our emotions. Our deep feelings in our body, we are kind of taking on energy. If you think about your computer and you're running a bunch of programs all the time, you're doing all these activities, every once in a while, or back in the old days, we had to do what? We had to clean it up. We had to clean up those files and all that kind of residue. And we do this thing called a defrag, where it kind of shakes out and cleans out the computer files a bit and gets everything reorganized. Well, we kind of have all this unprocessed, emotion or unprocessed feeling deep in our body. Now, some of it's older, some of it we just accepted and didn't know it was ours or not ours. We may not know it's there, but we just know that there's something not right. Very often, this is stuck in some main centers in our body. We may feel it in our lower body, either in our belly, in our lower back. We may feel it in the solar plexus, the chest area, our throat, our head. But depending on where you're feeling that tension, the stress, where there's pain, that is usually unexpressed emotion, unexpressed feelings, or it's unresolved. Okay. Now, some hurt, some pain is so great that it causes a wound to our soul, and we don't know what it's like to walk around unwounded. We're just trying to fix our, adjust to it, right? We call it our structural weakness, and we just try to keep making adjustments so that we can just keep moving forward. And that puts us in survival mode rather than being in a proactive creator mode. We're in a reactive working around mode, but we're not really in a creative space. So it hinders our ability to be creative, proactive, and it even hinders our ability to be fully aligned to our intention. I mean, we just got done having an 11-day set your intention for success, and we talked about some of this, but this is what I'm talking about is some of the deeper energetic patterns and how it's being held. Now, the difference between your feeling state and your emotions are when they're starting to express. They're moving, right? The energy is in motion, emotion. And so very often, we try to control our emotions. Oh, I don't want to be so angry. I don't want to be sad. I'm sick of crying all the time. I'm tired of being freaked out. And as someone who has been I was a tense kid. I was that kid on the playground. I'm bigger than everybody. I was a big, tall kid. So there used to be this character, baby Huey, that cried all the time. The cartoons. And if you remember a big girl on your playground who cried and was really sensitive all the time, that was me. I just felt things so deeply. And my mom would say, "Oh, honey, you got your feelers all run out." And I thought she was just talking in kind of a funny country way, because we make jokes like that. I'm from Texas, but sometimes we will exaggerate our accents or use expressions like we might have heard from our grandmas or our pappies or something, right? So we'll say things. So my mom kind of had a funny way of talking. And so she would just but she was this genius at reframing things. I mean, and I have to say, if there's anything I could point back to as what was probably the biggest influence in my life and everything that I saw my mom do, I'd have to say that's probably, I'm doing a lot of what my mom did unconsciously. She just was just so smart and wise, and she had this gift of being present to people. And that was such a gift in my life that I just want to help other people get to have that experience. And my mom was amazing at reframing things too. Like I'd get stuck in my thinking. She'd say, "Yeah, but on the other hand," or, "it's just as true," or "what if," right? And no one ever taught her any of this stuff, but she could have been a master hypnotherapist or an attorney. But instead, she was a waitress and a mom and then a business owner. And she had a lot of setbacks in her life, but she just had an incredible influence on people. And I was just so blessed to be her daughter. But she would talk about, you got your feelers run out. And what she's talking about, because I didn't feel safe and I wasn't, I felt so out of control of my body, my energy feelers were out, and I was tracking and feeling everything all around me all the time in order to be safe. I was trying to fix everything and everyone outside of me, even as a little kid, in order to be safe. Like I didn't sleep as a kid, and I didn't understand that there had been trauma, and it wasn't revealed until years later what that trauma was from my father and my mother's first husband, also my father. Fortunately, I was not raised with him, but there is a lifelong effect of that relationship. Okay. But I didn't know that I was just set up and I was run out all the time. I was exhausted. I was never present. I was not in my body, and I didn't know how to receive. I was always on this pushing out, tracking. And when I would get overwhelmed, that's when she'd say, "Yeah, your feelers are all run out." Okay. And so very often we're judging ourselves. Like, "I'm sorry, I'm crying. I hate that I'm angry. I'm depressed or I'm feeling anxious." And we're not really getting the information from the emotion, and we're not tuning in to how we're creating it and recreating it with our thoughts and our inner conversations. So in this second gift of the retrograde, it's learning how to really have a new conversation or a new awareness of our emotions and redirect them. Okay. So we want to be present, but then we want to understand, hey, what is it? What is it we're telling ourselves about our powerfulness or our lack of power or our place in the world that's really not true, that's keeping us from fulfilling this vision? Like, I'm called the big vision coach because I believe that everyone has this image of what they want to create. And it doesn't have to be like a giant world changing vision, but if you hold true to that vision, it will change everything in your life. Okay. And we have this vision, but then we have this self identity, and this creates a conflict. We have these emotions that are not aligned to that vision, and we're not having a greater conversation with ourselves about who we are, our potential, and what's possible. And we're not creating powerful state of being that creates a new emotion that moves us forward, because we're too stuck in the story, the judgment, the fear of what we're presently experiencing. Does this make sense? I just didn't have a chance to say this either. If you are watching by StreamYard, be sure and like the app, because I'd love to get your questions and comments. Okay, now, for some reason, I'm not able to see all of them, but I'm going to say hi so that you can see the comment bar. And I hope that you have a chance to say hi back. All right. So we're not operating from this greater state of being. Okay. I want to share with you right now a little technique. Now, I work with the One Command, which is an incredible process that walks you up into a higher level of being. Like we always hear about in law of attraction and everything, that you want to raise your vibration. You need to get out of your ordinary thinking. You need to come into an expanded state of awareness. And we are able to do that by walking you up into the theta brainwave state. We motor drive you through the 6-step process. We have an incredible statement that's called the One Command statement. It's so simple, so brilliant. And this was developed by the incredible Asara Lovejoy, who's the author and the creator of the process, the One Command. And she has a Amazon book by the same name. But the One Command statement itself is, I don't know how, and you state what you want. I only know it's so now, and I am fulfilled. The combination with that statement and taking you into this higher level of consciousness of the theta brainwave, it pauses your neurology, and it opens you up to receive this new command that's going to redirect your thinking. Okay. It's an incredible process. Very often, though, people have a little trouble with staying with that process. And here's what I mean. They will be upset. They want to get out of the feeling, right? And then they create a one command statement. They go, okay, give me the one command. What's the perfect one command? I want to make this statement, and tell me the magic words to make all this go away. And then they do the one command. They come back, and then they're like, oh, yeah. And I go, well, what action will you take? What do you know now? I go, I don't know. I hope it works. So it's like, ugh. Right. And it's like, okay, then you didn't have your state change. You didn't give yourself time to experience it. And you need a little help in retraining your beautiful, busy mind that's playing tricks on you. And you haven't given yourself time to shift your core identity. And a way to do that is coming back to being present, allowing yourself to be. And so organically, I developed a little process that I don't know, I don't have a cool name for it. I just call it the 4-step statement. Okay. And the trick on it is that we are first negative. We let that negative loop complete. Then we open up and we make the new statement for what we want. And that directs the mind. That prepares you, right? You're in this state of detachment. Then you can create from your position of authority. Now, this matters. And I'm going to take you through this. I'm going to just have you repeat a phrase with me afterwards. And then I would love to get your feedback. Okay. And I'll be watching in the comments, hashtag replay. Okay. I'm sharing all this with you. I want to do mention too that I will have a little special offer for you if you stay with me at the end. If you decide, yeah, you'd like to go ahead and take full advantage of the Mercury retrograde. But right now, let's just be present to this. Okay. Right now, there's a state of being that you know, and you could use this for yourself, but also maybe you're in a relationship with a difficult person. This process is incredible with difficult people. One of my favorite things to deal with. If you have a difficult person in your life, you definitely want to talk to me. Okay. Because I've got an incredible process for this that turns those around, that totally shifts that dynamic. But let's stay on this. So think about maybe you're worried. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe right now you know you need to do something, but you cannot get that vision. You just have no clue, right? And maybe you've tried some things, but you just can't get traction. If this is you, raise your hand. Or what are you experiencing that's causing some frustration? And you might be judging yourself, okay? But let's just use this phrase, being stuck. This is a good kind of general term, okay? So what I'm going to have you do is repeat some statements out loud after me. And when I tell you to breathe, take a breath. Okay. So first, just thinking about in some area of your life that you feel stuck in, financially, relationship wise, maybe your health, maybe you're in a home situation, maybe your career. Think of some aspect of your life that you feel stuck in. Be present to it. And then just let yourself feel stuck on whatever way you feel stuck. Notice where and how you feel that in your body. Okay, good. All right. So here's the next step. I want you to repeat these words after me. First, say, I am stuck. Okay. Next, say, and I'm going to be stuck. All right. Next, remember to breathe. Say, and I'm going to do everything in my power to stay stuck. Your brain's going, what? No. Like, oh, yeah. And I'm just going to build the pressure on that. Oh, yeah. I'm going to think thoughts that make me stay stuck. I'm going to refuse to take action, or I'm going to do the wrong thing. I'm going to teach everybody in my life to keep me stuck. I'm going to train all of my relationships. I'm going to speak words that keep me stuck. I'm going to think thoughts, and I'm going to do everything in my power to stay stuck, right? I'm just building up. You don't have to repeat that part, but just what's important is right now, everything you're doing is about staying stuck. Then here's the last part. And I will do all this and more until I no longer need to be stuck. And take a big breath. Go, Kathryn, that is crazy. Why would you say that? We're supposed to speak positive, life-affirming words, right? But if we've got this pattern that's unexpressed, if we aren't listening to that part of us that's saying, I'm stuck, I need help, how are you going to trust yourself to do the right thing? How can you be confident if you, in your actions and your choices and your beliefs if you aren't willing to look at the opposite? And very often, this part of you is saying, hey, I'd love to help, but you've got some terms and conditions and beliefs that are set up that are keeping me from helping you, right? So we need to understand that when we are in a particular pattern, and I can relate this back to when I was dealing with anxiety, depression cycle kicked in big time. Turned out it was my thyroid. And then I was judging myself. And I had friends who lovingly said, well, why don't you just use your magic? Why are you sick? Just do your magic thing. You can help everybody but you. What's wrong with you? I was like, oh, that's super helpful. Thank you. But I didn't know I was having this chemical imbalance, but the chemical imbalance was stirring up some unresolved things that I had not really given time to work through. When I learned this technique, going, oh, okay, I was present to it. And I had to admit, yeah, I'm anxious. And then I realized it was stopping me from making plans or taking action, anything to affect the future, because I didn't know if I was going to be anxious. Like, do you think if you have anxiety, you want to jump up and go to conferences and meetings and that type of stuff? Oh, no, you don't. Right. And then we unconsciously create and recreate these patterns, and we do everything to support it or manage it. And then we train the people in our lives to work with it. Right. And we're trying to work it out. So we get these other people who say things like, why don't you just use your stupid magic, Kathryn, who criticize you because you're criticizing yourself. Right. And you're just trying to work it out, and you're working it out in your other relationships, and it just feels chaotic and crazy, and you wonder what's wrong with you. But when you're saying that stuff and go, yeah, I'm creating it, you're moving yourself out of the position of being someone who's at the effect of, and you're shifting over to the one who is the cause. And that makes you a creator. Isn't that powerful? But then here's the last piece. In this statement, I'm going to do all this and more until I no longer need to be anxious or no longer need to be stuck. Your brain, your energy pattern, everything in you is doing this for a positive reason. It's doing it for your healing, or to keep you safe, or for your growth, or to help you maintain your relationships, to help you keep going back to that job you hate, but it's all maybe for your survival, right? It has a positive intention, even though it may be counter to what you desire, right? We have a positive intention. We can have a positive or a negative one. And when I talk about this, I'm speaking in not in terms of good or bad, but in terms of energy, positive force, negative force, moving forward, receptive, right? Okay. So if we are in an intention of survival and avoiding pain, and we are in this lack and struggle mode for our, again, survival, that intention is to not put ourselves in danger, right? And so just like when I was that little kid and I'm crying, I'm freaking out, and my emotions are everywhere, I didn't know that I was born an empath, and I have this finely tuned system that helps me tune into other people. And I'm supposed to, like the purpose of it, one, for my own growth, but two, as I'm tuning in and being aware, I'm using it as a feedback system so I can be the best help and support to someone, so people know that they aren't alone, right? So that they have a voice for that deeper part of them. And it's a very deep part, but in learning how to operate that and be okay with it was freaky deaky and overwhelming. But once I learned to accept it and understand more about the science behind it, and how to manage it and how to take care of myself, it became the most powerful tool. Okay. And the world didn't feel so random. And I could learn to be with myself and be with other people when they were in that really powerful, freaked out, upset, angry, whatever their state of being was. My job was to be present to the greater part of them. And that's why when there was a big upset, there'd be a big upset or somebody's yelling, screaming, and say, get Kathryn in here. Because I'd be like, there's a difficult person. I can hardly wait to see what comes out of this, right? I ran to it knowing that there was a resolution. And that's the positive intention. When we're saying, hey, whatever I'm going through, I know it's for my greater good and I'm going to be better on the other side of it. And that gives you confidence, right? So when we go, until I no longer need this, your brain is going, yep, yep, yep. Wait, what? Do I need this? Well, what is it I need? Do I really need all this trauma? Do I need this drama? Is this the best strategy? Is this the best way to access my inner resources? Is this going to keep me warm and fed and sheltered? What? Do I need this? And then it opens itself up to search. And so then instead of feeling stuck, we can ask ourselves, what state of being do you want to be in instead? What do you really need here? And very often it could be acceptance. It could be peace. A lot of people just want to be calm. Oh my God, if I could just be calm. And very often when I'm working with people one-on-one, I'll ask them, what is the state of being that you want to create from? What do you want to be able to build your relationships on? What is the state of being? What state of being do you want to manifest from? And what do you want to receive from? Okay. That shifts everything, because then what does that do? That puts you back in choice, mastery over your emotions, and that channels all of that energy and those feelings. And it gives it a new choice to redirect, to create motion. Isn't that powerful? It uses those emotions as a pathway of motion. And then the universe, people will say it is the craziest thing that will happen. It's almost like they watch the world start almost bending to their will. They'll have a thought and then someone says something, and they're not being manipulative. They just are tuned in to these deeper conversations that's happening in the world and with people. Like here's just a small example. But like when I had a time of living with my stepdad, taking care of him. And I would think, and I'm a house daughter, so dinner was kind of on me. And sometimes I'd think, oh, not cooking. I think John's going to want to do ponchos tonight. He'll be home soon. I'll ask him then. He'd come in and say, hey, you haven't started dinner yet. And I said, why? And he said, I want to go to ponchos. I go, cool. And then I noticed sometimes I'd be like, it'd be good tonight, just some beans and cornbread. And he'd text or call and go, would you mind putting on beans or cornbread? I go, yeah, that would be great, right? So I was just kind of tuned in. And I said, does that happen with you, with me? Like, you'll have a thought and then I come in and he said, never, ever in my life, ever. Why would that happen? Right. But people start having those kind of experiences. They feel their environment start bending to them. Circumstances start lining up. It's an amazing thing. So tune back in now to what do you need? What do you need? And right now I'm just going to tune in, and just since we had someone who was stuck, let's say the opposite is I want to be in a state of flow. Okay, flow. Wow, wouldn't that be nice to be in a state of flow? All right, so just repeat after me out loud. I am in a state of flow. Take a big breath. And I'm going to be in a state of flow. Excuse me. And I'm going to be in a state of flow. Good. Remember to breathe. Then the next statement. And I'm going to do everything in my power to allow myself to be in a state of flow. And to allow others to flow with me. Yeah, you're already feeling that, right? And now we're going to say, and I will do all this and more until I absolutely know myself as one who lives in a state of flow. Wow. Wow. So I would love to get your comments on what you experienced then, and then you can just go back and check in. What you've done is your mind's open and goes, what do I need? And you've declared, I need to be in flow. Then what happens is your brain goes on this search, like, what do I know about flow? When have I experienced it? And it looks first for those memories, and then it projects it into the future. Now, when we combine this with the one command and you roll your eyes up in that 6-step process and you go, I don't know how, I am living in a state of flow. I only know I am flowing from my success to my success to my success now, and I am fulfilled. Then this takes you on a greater search of what the universe, or what all of mankind and everything that's ever been written, created, said, expressed, what anyone's ever come to understand about living, moving, breathing in that state of flow. And, humans have this amazing thing called mirror receptors, and we're able to tap into this greater intelligence. And this literally activates unused portions in our brain, opens us up, and it prepares us to receive new information. Your hippocampus literally gets bigger. And so this gives you a greater I'm going to call it reserve, but it gives you this great reservoir. It creates this greater reservoir for you to receive knowledge. And then it's not just the book knowledge, right? It's the experiential piece. It's magic. But all of that's all there all the time, but you're not aware of it. You don't know how to direct your attention to it, because being in the state of stuck emotions, or in this upset of, stuck state of feelings, excuse me. And then we have these runaway emotions, and that keeps us from being really clear on having a positive, powerful intention that allows our unconscious and conscious actions to begin to align to it, shifts how we speak about it to the world, but also that internal conversation we're having with ourselves, that as we have this clarity and our energy is clear, then this starts opening up our energy centers, and then your third eye, you're able to get that vision. And then an incredible thing, and Joseph Dispenza talks about this a lot, that in your pineal gland, when you are aligning to your intention and you are saying, this is what I want, make it so, there are 3 little calcite crystals that stack up one on another, and they form this tower, and it becomes this like light beam that of a direction, and it's like it turns on your light. You look like a lighthouse, and it starts going on that search, one, for where, what is matching my intention, but also it starts calling your good to you. It is the most incredible thing. And science is supporting this more and more. Your biology starts aligning to this. And all these different parts of you start working together beautifully. And that's the gift of the retrograde, of taking this time where you're dealing with that deep, unexpressed energy of feelings in your body, learning how to retrain and repattern your emotions, get those redirected, and then getting crystal clear on that intention, and doing it to where it's so strong that you're not having to take tons and tons of action and go out and do all these things and go slay dragons. But whatever you do, whatever you encounter along the way, you're doing it from this state of confidence, knowing that whatever you encounter, 1, you're able to, but 2, it must be necessary, because it's preparing you for a greater good. It's giving you strength and resilience. It's reconnecting you back to your values. It's preparing you for the next phase. And so when you're in that greater state of being, you're operating from that greater intelligence, and that creates that flow. Then when you are first in this detached state and you're going, yep, this is the state of being I want to be in. Then when you do that one command statement, you're going up. You're not going up and hoping I get the right incantation. You're going up as a person in authority who is stating and sending out your message out into the universe. This is what I want. This is my authority. I have the right to want it. This is my authority for speaking it. And I'm creating an incredible state of expectancy and a reservoir to receive it Make it so. And that's what's happening. You're doing it from the state of a greater authority within you, knowing that it is right and it is your right to be happy and prosperous, to have the freedom to express, to be living in the truth of who you are. And I could not think of anything that would mean a more happy, and successful life at any degree. You may never have that $1 million in the bank, but then at the same time, there's nothing that could stop you either if that's what you desired. So, has this been helpful so far? Be sure and let me know. And I do want to be sure and mention, I'm going to post this in the comments, that I did mention that I've got a special offer for you right now. Now, by the way, people ask, is this recording available? I am going to leave it up right here on this page where you're finding it, and I'm posting it in my YouTube channel. It is going to be available because I know I covered a lot of principles in this talk, and we went through the 4-step process, and I gave you a little clue about that one command, right? But also talked about what is actually happening here and why this period of the retrograde is so important. And I want to take advantage of this period of the retrograde to focus on these 3. And it's really more of like an energy reset. I look at the pure energy of what you're doing. Very often we need to get detached. And I find working with that energy and creating this deep alignment with you, I first say the master in you, but also you have a sacred child and you have different aspects of your personality. And I want to create a deep connection with, for you, not me with you, but with you, for you, and your own connection to yourself, so that you can have a new conversation, so that you can resolve some of these hurts, so that you can free up that part of you that you've been judging, and that free up that part of you that's been carrying that hurt, that hadn't known how to let go of it, how to free up your inner, your emotions, so that you can get out of survival mode and move into that conscious creator mode. And that's the intention of these. And so I've created a 3-session package, and we're dealing with those deep emotions. I have it all posted here, but it's pretty simple. But number 1, we're going to be doing healing and clearing any stuck or resolved feelings that are held in the body. We're going to be doing energy healing and repatterning, particularly around abundance. But if you have something else that you want to attract, create, or manifest, we will certainly direct it to what it is that you desire. And number 3, create that deep inner alignment to your intention and set some crystal clear goals for the coming year. We do this in a 3-session package, and I would recommend that we do it in the next 3 weeks, right? You do 1 a week for 3 weeks. And then become a member of the free group. And then if you feel, if it makes sense that you and I would work together afterwards, then of course we'll keep working together. But this is a big jump start for creating success in 2021 and beyond. So I've got the information for the package in the chat bar. I've just posted, it's posting right there. There we go. And I do have it listed here. And you'll be able to read that there. But if it makes sense for you to get some help on this, but hopefully today he'll give you some clues on what direction to focus on. If you're into astrology at all, I'm going to pull up her name, but I just love how she thinks about this. Michelle Gregg is a fantastic astrologer. I just love her work. And in our One Command community, we have the amazing Remy O'Brien. And Remy, I've talked to a lot of astrologers. I've had a chance to get a lot of readings, and Remy is a beautiful healer in her own right. She's a One Command practitioner and circle leader. But when she did my astrology reading, she brought up some aspects that I wasn't aware of, that no one's talked about or was able to explain to me. And I personally got a big shift on that. So if you want to learn more about astrology, I can personally recommend Remy O'Brien right in our community. Otherwise, I invite you to take a look at the package. The way that it works is you make your payment, you click on the link, it takes you to the scheduling page, then it takes you to the payment page, and we set up one-on-one by Zoom, and we get started. And sessions are about an hour, but when I work with people, if it turns out it takes a little longer, I'm with it until the cycle is complete. So I always set aside an hour. Sometimes it's less than an hour, but I have an hour set aside. And when work is done, we get done. Okay. So if this has been helpful, do me a favor, on a scale of 1 to like, okay, that's all right, thanks, but 10, you loved it. Put in your comment a number anywhere from 1 to 10, so I know if this was useful or valuable to you. If you have any questions or comments, be sure and do hashtag replay, and I will, that way that helps me do a search and I can make sure I answer your questions. All right, my love, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And until next time, this is Kathryn Perry, the Big Vision Coach, and I witness your mastery. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.